So now we're going to go over a few exercises that are modified sit-ups. The main goal of these are to go through a progression of various types of sit-ups that don't put strain on the lumbar spine by doing repetitive and excessive flexion in the lumbar spine. In another video, we have the supine chest raise test for the endurance of the anterior lumbar spine. And we talked about how we're only going up as high as the scapulae coming off the ground, so we don't ever do anything that looks like that. So for that test, that just sort of lays the groundwork of the way that you're going to build the anterior core musculature without doing excessive and repetitive flexion. So the first version is the McGill method. We talked about the McGill Big Three: side planks, bird dogs, and now here's the modified sit-up. The way that McGill does it is he has one leg in hook line, and the leg is flat down. This is just to help keep the pelvis neutral. So now I'm going to take this hand, I'm going to put it under the small of my back, same kind of thing we talked about before, where about a hand's width is a good rough estimate of maintaining neutral spine. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up just about to there. Now what I'm waiting for is when I really feel pressure on my hand. You can see I'm shaking, my abs are working, but I don't have real flexion in my lumbar spine. My abdominals are starting to work. I'm going to train endurance here. You can do repetitions. Now, one thing I'll say is that for all of these exercises that we're about to do, in between reps, don't let your patient just flop, because that's very typically what people will do. You're going to have them sort of in a little bit of a braced position and sort of, I'm already engaging my abdominals even at rest. So now if I do repetitions like this, in between reps, I am not letting my abs go. They're still active. I'm not just letting everything release. I can hold. McGill would tell you to hold this, work up to about 30 seconds, and I'm shaking a lot. Similarly, so that's the McGill method. One leg up, one leg down, and hand behind the back, working on building up holds of building endurance of the anterior musculature. If you want to do modified sit-ups in other ways, you can, as long as you're still maintaining that principle of not creating excessive lumbar flexion. So if you think of the arms as sort of a rate of progression here, I can be in hook line, and usually the way I instruct my patients is they come up here. I've worked with them on neutral spine. You can do these with a stabilizer. It gets a little tricky. They can put a little pad here. But again, I'm just looking for not really creating flexion in the lumbar spine. So I come up. Now, if my hands are down here, it's easier. The farther away from my body, you can see I'm already shaking. So there's all these infinite ranges here of progression, where down here it's the easiest. I can go up here, a little bit tougher. I go up there. Now it's really, really tough. You can add weights to this if your patient gets to that point. Not really, usually we're building endurance here. So every once in a while, a patient asks me if they want to build, like a six-pack abs, you need to do some resisted flexion. But in this position, you can work those muscles without really loading the lumbar spine into flexion. So practice these variations where you've got the McGill method starting here, sitting up into this position, maintaining neutral spine because I've still got space for my hand, and doing these variations of basic sit-ups where I'm not actually creating flexion in my spine because I'm not rolling up high enough. I should add it, I'm not posteriorly tilting. So my spine stays neutral. See how it feels putting your hands in different positions. And also think of cues you can give your patients, ways to help them maintain neutral spine while they're doing these exercises to build endurance in the anterior core musculature.